Let's talk about Mumford and Sons and their banjo player was Winston Marshall. Now, I've never heard any of their music. I have no interest in the band at all, in the same way that I don't watch football, and yet I still have to comment on football because it gets political, because politics is everywhere, and what can these people do? And so it turns out that their banjo player had read Andy No's book back in March, and he decided to tweet this out. He, as this left-wing media site puts out, he shared a book which comes complete with a note of praise from conservative talking head Tuck Carlson. Ooh. He says, "Congratulations, Andy No. Finally had the time to read your important book. You're a brave man." We've got the book, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've got Unmasked It back there.
It's a good book.
It's a good book. Andy No and his anti-Antifa beliefs shot to prominence in June 2019 upon attending a far-right rally and counter-protest in Portland. Footage from the event shows No being punched and kicked before being egg-sprayed with silly string and having a milkshake dumped on his head. Right, so he was abused by a bunch of communists. Marshall's tweet is not the first time Mumford and Sons have been called out for their embrace of controversial figures after their bassist Ted Dwayne and keyboardist welcomed Dr. Jordan Peterson to their studio in 2018. Ah, yes, Dr. Jordan Peterson, the fascist. But anyway, so yesterday he put up a blog post on his Medium account explaining that he is leaving Mumford and Sons. And here are a few extracts from it. "I believe that my tweet was going to be as innocuous as the others. How wrong I turned out to be. Over the course of 24 hours, it was trending with tens of thousands of angry retweets and comments. I failed to foresee that my commenting on a book critical of the far left could be interpreted as approval of the equally abhorrent far right. Nothing could be further from the truth. 13 members of my family were murdered in concentration camps in the Holocaust. My grandma, unlike her cousins, aunts, and uncles, survived. She and I were close. My family knows the evils of fascism painfully well. To say the least, to call me a fascist is ludicrous beyond belief. The distress brought to them and their families that weekend I regret very much. I remain sincerely sorry for that, and intentionally I'd put them into a divisive and totemic issue. Despite pressure to nix me, they invited me to continue with the band. That took courage, particularly in the age of so-called cancel culture. I made an apology and agreed to take a temporary step back. Rather predictably, another viral mob came after me." So after he's apologised, another viral mob came after me for this time for the sin of apologising. Then followed libelous articles calling me right-wing and such. I just love that you right wing. Ooh, yeah, but half of people are right wing, like half of them are left wing, like,
And that's allowed.
That's normal. Although there's nothing wrong with being a conservative, when forced to politically label myself, I flutter between centrist, liberal, or the bit more honest, bit this, bit that. Being labelled erroneously just goes to show how binary political discourse has become. I criticise the left, so I must be right. Also, their logic goes. So why leave the band? On the eve of his leaving to the West, Solzhenitsyn published an essay titled "Live Not by Lies." And he says, when I unmess up my keyboard, he says, "And he who is not sufficiently courageous to defend his soul, don't let him be proud of his progressive views, and don't let him boast that he is an academician or something, or a people's artist, a distinguished figure, or a general. Let him say to himself, I am part of the herd and a coward. It's all the same to me so long as I'm fed and kept warm. I could remain and continue to self-censor, but it will erode my sense of integrity, nor my conscience. I've already felt that beginning. The only way forward for me is to leave the band. I hope in distancing myself from them, I am able to speak my mind, without them suffering the consequences." So it's actually a very thoughtful and sensitive response. What do you make of it?
That's true. I just don't understand why him leaving, he thinks, would be the correct thing to do.
I mean, they've hung out with Jordan Peterson, so I don't think they're ever going to come back from that.
But I mean, like, the whole band should just be like, well, sod off. Like, we're allowed to have a view occasionally.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that would have been the more appropriate thing to do in my mind.
Yeah, but I mean, who knows? I'm not going to...
Yeah, I don't know the details of the
Yeah,
dynamic.
exactly. I'm not going to, speculate on things I have no idea about the internal workings of the relationships of the band. But I thought that was, a very courageous and noble thing to do. I mean, he wants to be able to speak on subjects that are weighing on his conscience because, I mean, we've been through in this podcast how awful Antifa are and the terrible catastrophe that is approaching the United States. And so, of course, let's go to Twitter for the very, very intelligent response. So the first one, it's honestly impressive to be too white for Mumford and Sons. Good critique, Jess. Good critique. Everyone walked away from that thinking, yeah, that showed him.
If you dislike socialist terrorism, you're white. And that's what's wrong with you. Okay.
The next one is from someone whose bio describes themselves as 23, gay brown socialist, he, him.
Palestine flag.
Palestine flag. Honey, the world left Mumford and Sons in 2014. Good luck with the fascism, though. He's not becoming a socialist, Neil. Like he's pointing out his opposition to socialism. The next ones are weird because for some reason they seem to think that Andy No has been providing kill lists to Atomwaffen. Atomwaffen being a prescribed neo-Nazi terrorist group. I mean, I don't really know much about them beyond that because why would you need to? They're just constantly being. I don't know, but I assume they're just constantly under the thumb of the intelligence services, as they should be, as Antifa should be. But Andy No is a threat to our community and provides kill lists for Atomwaffen.
I'm just going to say made-up lie.
I'm going to default to that being a made-up lie. But this is something they've posted a few times, haven't they? Anyway, so yeah, this is cope. If we can go on to the next one, John. So there's just a bunch of cope that Rory found on the Twitter. Now that he's free to express his views without worrying about affecting his bandmates, I'm sure we'll see him lining up alongside No and his type. Okay. Yeah, he's going to go hang out with conservatives. Yeah, no. Also, wasn't there an incident in a recording studio involving some right-wingers? Ooh, before the No incident? Yeah, Jordan Peterson. Sorry, you stood next to a right-winger? It's like, that's where we are now. But, but as you can see, this is all just mad. And, like, this one here, all I did was, like, agree with a known fascist who puts leftists on Atomwaffen kill lists. How could I have possibly known this might negatively impact me? This is just such a bizarre... And that's a verified checkmark, obviously. So, big brain takes. But this is mad. This is such a weird narrative that they've conjured out of what appears to be nothing. Mm. Like, no evidence is provided for this allegation, and I just find it really hard to believe.
Verified checkmark leftists are on a first-name basis with the members of Atomwaffen, surely, to get this kind of information.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose they know. Let's go on to the next one, John. Not bothered whether he leaves them or not, it's the attempt to make an equivalence between an actual threat of the, quote, far left and far right that's wrong-headed. Anyone even having a tiny bit of respect for No needs to give their head a shake. Well, I've got massive respect for him, so I guess I'm going to have to
brave as hell.
Shoot myself. Exactly.
Gina, buy his book.
Yeah, but what I love about this, okay, the actual threat of the far left, I mean, we do have, 30 people from the Black Lives Matter. How many we killed for Antifa? Probably a dozen or so.
Multiple terrorist attacks.
Yeah, I mean,
government facilities in multiple instances.
Millions of dollars of property damage, people's lives being ruined that way. And what have the far right done?
New Zealand?
Yeah, that's a good point. So one. That's it. That's all I can think.
Norway? That was a while ago.
Yeah, but that was wasn't that like 97 or something? When did Breivik? That was like literally a decade ago.
It's not 2020s.
No, it's not. And so yeah, it's just bizarre. But and I love Mike P. Williams again, another verified checkmark. You retweeted and praised a known member of the alt-right with far-right and fascist ties. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Andy No is not a member of the alt-right because the alt-right is a white identitarian movement.
I'm not sure how they feel about the Vietnamese. Fellow whites, maybe.
Yeah, but this was also one of my favorites. This is from a Twitter account called Respect is Vital. No, sorry, the next one. The next one across. Respect is Vital. So Alex, he says the far right are uploading Mumford and Sons banjo player for quitting as he wants to be able to continue with his views, espousing his views about the far left. Why shouldn't he be able to do that? His family are multi-millionaires, so don't buy into the slumming it on the road spiel either. Andy No is a fascist danger. Okay, well, let's go to... I mean, this guy's bio, if you want to hear it. Disabled, Muslim, father, husband, BP, DM, blood cancer, black army leader, charity shop worker.
Okay. Okay.
No pronouns, though.
Ooh.
Weird.
Well, you're a fascist, though.
Yeah, what a fascist. But anyway,
I should correct ourselves, actually, because we just mentioned far-right terrorist attacks. The eco-fascists in New Zealand would be a leftist, and if Breivik was a fascist, he'd also be a leftist. I don't really know his ideology. Yep. Trying to think of a far-right terrorist attack that would be legitimate, I mean, in the sense of actually, hyper-conservatism. Saudi Arabia is the far-right, if we're correct about this. In which case, I can't think of any monarchist uprisings, except maybe the...
Well, they don't necessarily have to be monarchist. They could just be heavily hyper-traditional, as you say.
Yeah, hyper-religious.
But I can't...
ISIS, there we go.
Well, I guess ISIS, but I don't think that really ISIS map well onto the Enlightenment left-right paradigm.
No.
I think that ISIS could be considered a separate entity. But anyway, let's go to Barry Weiss for the far-right response. If you're looking for integrity, look no further. Blown away by this, Mr. Winston Marshall. Wow. Okay, that's one Nazi response. The next Nazi was Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Your integrity is intact, and your honesty is deeply moving. That's what that Nazi says. Claire Lehman of Quillette, another famous Nazi. Winston Marshall is a man of integrity. Right, okay. Angela Richardson, she's a Conservative MP. Must be a Nazi. I love the music of Mumford & Sons. Now cancel culture has cancelled one of its talents. I wish Winston Marshall didn't feel that he needed to walk away to maintain his integrity. What are we doing to ourselves, our creatives, our talents, our freedom to speak? Oh, that sounds just like a Nazi. Calvin Robinson, another Nazi. This heartbreaking but inevitable. Mr. Winston Marshall is one of the kindest, most genuine people I know. Yeah, well, that's Nazi sympathies. He who is not sufficiently courageous to defend his soul, don't let him be proud of his progressive views. Good to see he's taking a stand. And then we get I thought we'd end this bit with a wonderful, wonderful interpretation from one of these leftists who...
Mask in the bio, is that going to be a new thing?
No, hang on. I think we'll call them academic banjo players.
Okay.
She says, this, without a single hint of exaggeration, is one of the top 10 funniest things I've ever read. Because he's resigned because of Andy No. Is that okay? And she also says, listen to Aubrey Atwater briefly and succinctly explain the connections between Appalachia, folk music, the banjo, the history of slavery, and African music.
What? Mumford & Sons are as racist because slavery and the banjo.
Yes. African Appalachians are playing their banjos just as they did back in the Congo.
Okay.
But she ends it with, and this is in all caps.
Is she British as well?
I have no idea. God, I don't know, and I don't want to. But she ends in all caps. If the banjo player from Mumford & Sons was a fan of Andy No, he seriously messed up his understanding of the instrument and the music it was made to play. Sorry, this banjo, it has teleological significance. Only a slave can play a banjo, don't you know? And I'm going to put this in all caps on Twitter, as if this is some sort of intellectual statement. Like, as if you're not allowed to play a banjo any way you bloody like. No, the banjo is designed...
According to the left, no. I mean, this is cultural appropriation as well, so, I mean...
banjo, traditional slave instrument. If you're not a slave, you can't play it.
That is the leftist position. If it's not part of your race, you can't use it. Stick to your own race. I mean, that's their position on this.
It's so mad. I love it so much. But, so good on Winston for sticking to his guns and following his conscience. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.